Alright, we're going to do a quick introductory lesson into HTML. HTML is the language that websites are built out of. Real simple, easy to use, and you can even start working with your students, teaching them a little bit of the basics of HTML without any extra software. All you need, at least for Windows and even Mac, as I understand, is some kind of text editing program, Notepad, for example, in Windows and TextEdit in Mac. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's just that. It's a markup language that changes how text and pictures and links and stuff like that are formatted. Really fun and easy to learn. A great way to teach kids how coding has to be done just right, because you have to keep your symbols straight, your tags straight, and you can kind of see how something that's much larger, like a website, is made up of a bunch of small parts that are formatted in certain ways. This is a great resource to see HTML, or to learn HTML and see the different elements and tags and stuff like that that make up the HTML language. W3 Schools, also Codecademy. Once you make an account, you can, if you have a Google account, you can use that instead of setting up a separate Codecademy account. Under their all courses, if you scroll to the bottom, they have strictly HTML and CSS. CSS you'll see a lot with HTML. It stands for Cascading Style Sheet. It's a way of centrally managing things like using the same font through an entire website or the same background color, things like that, instead of editing those pages individually. Anyway, Codecademy, W3 Schools, great way to get a little bit more HTML skills. They even have courses specifically for making just a website, so that you can kind of see that from start to finish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over to Windows here, get signed in. This is a website I was working on specifically for this lesson, just to kind of show what the end product will look like. You can see there's a lot of text here. Some of it's confusing. There's some symbols. It kind of just looks like a hodgepodge, but once you learned how to pick each one of those apart, you'll see kind of how everything works. This lesson is going to kind of be centered around how HTML works. We're not going to cover anything like eyelines or matching color schemes or any of the design elements. That's a whole nother lesson in itself. Website design, making a website look good and professional and the right amount of flow. We're covering the technical aspect of HTML and just kind of how it works, and even that, it's just going to be very introductory. There might be a few things in here that aren't necessarily best practice, but we're covering the basics just to kind of dive our feet in there and give kids and students an opportunity to see how it works. The three big main things to learn at first are the difference between an element, a tag, and an attribute. I'm going to go ahead and open up what this web page looks like right here. It's a separate file. This was just something I threw together real quick. We have a couple different elements on here. That's this heading right here. I have a paragraph, I have a link, and I have a picture. All of those are elements in the HTML world. Tags are one of the more critical parts of learning HTML. A tag is anywhere that you see these carets, like this is the opening of an HTML tag, and this is a closing of an HTML tag. You can notice the closing by the slash, and that's something that's true for all HTML tags. Here I've started the header part of a website. It's the start of it and the end of it. I've started and ended the title, which just says, actually that's spelled wrong. It's supposed to say website. Save that. This is a great opportunity to kind of see how you have to manage two files when you're doing it this way. But we'll go over that when we start covering a little bit more. And that website is right here, that title. Let me go ahead and close that. So this is kind of what it ends up looking like. We'll use this as a reference as we go through this. But we're going to go ahead and start with a blank, and we'll see how much I remember before we have to look at the reference. I'm just going to come to my desktop, right-click, start a new text document. And this just opens Notepad. You can go ahead and name it here. I'll just call it video website. And this is a TXT file. The file endings are going to be pretty important when you're learning this. You can always check and go to properties. Typically the symbols change. This is a TXT. but we need to save HTML files in order to get them to load the HTML code properly, like when I load this. I'll show you how to do that. So let's go ahead and open our video website here. Like I was talking about earlier, HTML tags have an open and a close. The tags are what show where an element begins and ends. So pretty much all HTML files that you're going to build, or websites you're going to build, are going to pretty much start with the 2 caret HTML, 2 caret again, /HTML. This is just showing where all of the HTML code is going to begin and end. Give yourself a little workspace here. To set that tab at the top, I'm going to go ahead and start the header. Then I'm going to close the header. And I'm just doing the enters and the tabs and everything to kind of keep everything straight. Inside of the header, or between the 2 tags, I'm going to insert the title tag. That's what changes that tab at the top. If you notice, most websites will have something in that little tab to kind of help you remember when you're on other pages or sites that this one's the one for MSN or this one's the one for Google, so that you can have those as an easy reference. To do that on your own website, you use the open and close title tag, and anything that's in between that tag is going to show up as the text. Video website. We can call it something different. Just video site, so it's different from the file name, so you can see how that works. So we've got a little bit of HTML. We'll go ahead and save now. When I click this save, it's going to save the txt file, this one here. But we need an HTML file in order for it to show up as a website. So I'm going to click on Save As. Down here, I'm going to keep making sure I save these on my desktop because it's easier to just click on them here rather than having to hunt through the file system and find it. I'm going to call this video site, but I'm going to also video website, but I'm also going to add a .html at the end and save that. And you'll notice just now this popped up. It's got the Chrome symbol because Chrome is my default browser saying, oh, Windows is saying, oh, I recognize what to do with HTML files. You want them opened in your default browser, which is Chrome. So when I open that, you notice it's blank because we don't have any HTML code. But the one thing that is different is this up here. The video site that we typed in shows up in the tab in our title. So let's go ahead and add a couple more of the elements to get this to be a little bit more exciting. I'm going to open that again. I'm going to start the body part of my HTML page, which is pretty much everything else that you usually see. Within the body, excuse me, we're not going to start the body yet. We're going to go ahead and put a heading on here. HTML has some built-in heading sizes so that you don't have to worry about it. H1 being the largest. I think it goes all the way down to H6 for a smaller kind of heading. I'm going to open and close that H1, and then in between those 2 tags, I'm going to type what my heading is. Something like this is my amazing heading. Oops. Exclamation. And then I'm going to show you right now just a little tip. Well, not really a tip, but just kind of how this works. I did mention we have to kind of work in 2 files here. This is the txt where we're editing the code, the HTML, and this is the actual HTML file that loads in Chrome and displays the web page. If I were to change that and just go File, Save, when I open this one, the HTML, you'll notice my title isn't there, just this. It's because I'm working in 2 different files. So every time I make any changes, I essentially have to save twice. I have to save the txt so that this will save in Notepad, and I also have to save the HTML, which I have to go to a file, Save As again. And I just hit the right arrow key because I want it to be the same name, website, and then add the .html. Save that. It'll say it already exists and you want to replace it. Yeah, that's fine with me. Now when I click on video website, my heading is there because that new HTML code's been saved in the HTML file. A little bit confusing at first to kind of keep track, like, you know, you're going to have to work in 2 files as you keep track, but as you kind of learn it and get the rhythm, you'll figure it out, and it'll become second nature. You can come into these HTML files, right click on them, and well, I guess it's not going to do it. Sometimes typically you can get an edit button here where you can just go in and edit it directly, but even then when you save, it saves it as a separate TXT, and it just gets confusing. It's kind of easier to do it this way, keep track of saving the text document and the HTML document separately. So that's our heading. There's usually typically a lot more text on a website than just a heading and a little title piece at the top. I'm just separating these just to kind of help me keep track. I'm going to go ahead and insert a paragraph, which is, in blogs or news websites or something like that. There's typically a lot of some article or something that you read, and that would be typically placed between two paragraph tags, which makes up the paragraph element. So this is a long, oh, can't spell, explanation. Oops, I think I still spelled it wrong. We'll just use a different word. This is a paragraph that tells all about the interesting thing that my website is about. So that's what would show up as a paragraph in our website. We'll go ahead and just show how that changed. File save the text document, so that's this one here with the paper, and then file save as the .html, so that you get the website version, and go ahead and replace it, and that's this one here. Double click on that and you'll notice we have a paragraph now. Much smaller text. That's kind of the difference between headings and paragraph. These are very changeable. The fonts that you use, the colors that they are, their positions on the screen, those are all changeable through attributes. And we're going to go over those here in just a little bit. But we're going over just the basic elements and tags for now. One thing you'll notice in a lot of websites, a lot of them will have links to other websites. I'm going to go ahead and show you how that works. We'll have an opening, an opening A tag, and a closing A tag. This is how a link starts, so I can put something in here like this is a link. This is a great way to start learning attributes like what I was just mentioning. I'm going to save that and then save as the HTML, .html. When I come in here, I have the text that this is a link, but you notice I click on it, it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't do anything. We have to add an attribute to make that link work. So within the opening A tag, we're going to edit the href attribute, and that href attribute just tells where the link points to. I'll show you kind of what that means. So I'm going to say href right after the A, and within the A tag, you notice I'm within the caret here, equals, I'm going to put double quotes, and I'm going to put a full website address here. You have to put the HTTP, otherwise it tries to open a local file called whatever website you're going to type in there. This just helps it link a little bit easier. And I'll just make a link to Google right here. So that's the full Google website address is between the quotes. The this is a link is what's going to show up, but it's going to be this is the text that's going to be blue and underlined what you typically see in most websites with links. I'm going to save. Save as .html. Open video website. You'll notice it's here. It's purple now because it's probably saved the fact that I was messing with it earlier when I was preparing for the video. But if I click on it now, that will take me to Google. So now your website has a link on it. If you wanted this to be different, like you can see, say I wanted this link to show up in my paragraph, I can go ahead and close this rather than on a separate line. I can take this entire tag, this entire element, I should say. I'm going to cut it with Control X. I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to put the word here in it rather than this is a link. So that's what's going to be displayed in either blue or purple. I'm going to say here, and this is going to get a little confusing. You can kind of see I'm opening the A tag here, saying where it's going to go. This is the text that will be displayed, and then I close the A tag. So right now my cursor is still within the paragraph tag, and I'm going to say here is a link to another awesome website. I'm going to file save that, and then save as the HTML. And you notice it's here within my paragraph, but it is a link. And then I even have a space right before the is. And if I click on here, it's right there. So you can kind of nest elements within elements that way to do some pretty cool stuff. Just kind of showing you how that works. So that's paragraphs and headings. The body, the head, and stuff like that are kind of more separators to just show you this is where these elements live, this is where these elements live. You can continue to do more elements. Let's go ahead and add an image. Images are on a lot of websites. I'm going to open with the img tag, and then I'm also going to close the img tag. These tags typically, there's a few exceptions, but typically have to be closed or they won't load properly. I'm going to edit the image attribute called src or source. This is where it gets a little complicated. Typically you would upload these websites to like a web server, and all of the images and videos and stuff like that would be loaded on the same server, so these file paths would reflect that. This website's not going to be loaded or publicly accessible to anyone. It's just a file that lives here on my computer. I want to load this little puppy image that I have on my desktop, so I have to point to where that image exists on my computer. Typically anything that's on your desktop is going to say C, make sure I get the right slashes, sometimes I forget which one to use, users, those don't look right, I think those are the Mac ones, C users, your username, mine on this computer happens to be that. Go to my desktop folder because it's on my desktop, and the file itself is called puppy1.jpg. And I'm going to save that. I'm going to save as the HTML too. Now I have an image of a puppy on my website. So it's kind of just as easy as that. If I were to take this puppy image here and move it somewhere else in my computer, say in my downloads folder or something, then the picture wouldn't load properly, and I'd have to change this path to reflect that change, or if I change the file name itself. Our website now has a few elements on it, but you can see this white background is kind of bright. It kind of clashes with the white that's in the picture. These are all aligned to the left. Your eye would probably prefer to see it just in the center of the screen. So we're going to go ahead and mess with some more attributes of our heading element, our paragraph element, our body element for this background color, and our image element. So let me go ahead and close this. Attributes are always edited within the opening tag, at least in most cases that I can remember. So let's say this H1, I want to center it. I would change the align attribute, make it equal center. And there's my heading in the center now. Go ahead and close that. You can edit multiple attributes within a tag to change how an element works. For example, I'm going to change the text color. I'm going to say style is the attribute I would edit here. Color, green, to change the text color of the heading to green. Just so I can kind of show you multiple things at once, we'll go ahead and change the paragraphs align to center also. And we'll just leave it black. The image, I'll show you how to center that in a little bit. HTML5 has changed how some of these attributes work and they're not. Image, for example, works a little bit differently, and we'll work with that here in just a little bit. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to save as the HTML. So now you'll notice this is green, this is centered. Those are the two things we changed there. My background color is still really bright, so I want to change that. I would change that in the body tag. I have to remember style equals background color and light gray. It might seem like I'm just pulling these out, but I've been practicing for this video, so I kind of remember these, but I did have to go to a site like W3 Schools to look up how HTML attributes work. Here's a section on HTML attributes, HTML elements. Unless you do this every day, those are people that do this every day will typically remember these tags and attributes and just be able to recall them from memory. But people that just kind of do this as a hobby or just want to show some students how to do it, it's good to learn how to reference these and even to show students how, hey, you don't remember how to do that, Google it. Look up a reference and remember how to do it. A lot of things nowadays aren't so much remembering exactly how to do something, but knowing where to look up the answer that you need. So body style equals background color, light gray. This should change the entire background of this one web page that we're building. And you'll notice, you can see the contrast now between the white in the picture and the background, and it's a little softer on the eyes than that bright white background was. And finally, this kind of just goes to show, like I said, about how you look up and reference things. I had a hard time trying to get the image to center initially, and I found someone's website that said this is how they did it with the new HTML. Oh, and it didn't save, so I'd have to look that up again. I forgot to save the file before I closed it. This float center doesn't work. It's a different line of code. But anyway, that's how you build a website using free tools that are built into Windows and even Mac. Downloading any web browser you want should work. This should work in Firefox. Should work anywhere else. And Notepad is a great text editing tool to work these. And I think you can do it in Word also, but sometimes Office products can be expensive. But if you wanted to do it, you could do it with the free tools and just a little bit of practice. Like I said, it's a great way to show students how code works, how you have to be very particular. If I were to delete some of these symbols, like maybe this caret here, or not close this tag here at the end, the website wouldn't work. And so I'd have to go through here and kind of debug and see where my mistake was, especially since it wouldn't give me an error saying there's an issue at this exact spot. It just wouldn't load. So you'd have to kind of see where the issue is there. That's a great exercise for students too. You can always, as the teacher, build a website, something simple like this, but break something inside of here, like misspell style, or take one of these quotes out, or something that's going to break it, and have the students try to discover where the mistake is and have them fix it. Great problem solving skills, great computer literacy skills. It's just all around exciting for the kids. And with that, I'm going to leave you. Again, here's the references. W3 Schools is a great reference. Codecademy is a great reference for HTML. A great way to get kids introduced to coding. Thanks.